When the Goslins split up, they made a pact to stay out of the spotlight for a while. But with the fifth season now underway, Jon has finally broken his silence about what went wrong in their marriage.
What do you do when the perfect family you saw on TV as a child isn't perfect at all? Jon Gosselin is finally speaking out 16 years after their messy breakup. The truth is very different from the show you remember. This is the real story of what broke Jon and Kate's hearts. Love, dreams, lies, and heartbreak. You'll never see them the same way again after hearing this. The beginning. At a normal work picnic in the summer of 1997, two very different worlds met. Life was easy for Jon Gosselin. He didn't make any plans and was happy with the way things were. Kate Kreider was the opposite of him. You could see the drive in her eyes and feel it in the air around her. She had a plan for everything. They didn't click right away, but the difference between them drew them together. She thought he was calm and steady. Her drive made him want more from life than he had ever thought possible. Their friendship grew quickly and became serious before either of them could stop and think about it. They got married in just 2 years. They both wanted a big family, a house full of life, and a future based on love and hard work. But the truth came out early. As the months turned into years without a baby, the first signs of real trouble began to show. Kate was told she had polycystic ovary disease, which made it hard for her to get pregnant. It was terrible for someone whose dream was to have a child. Treatments for infertility became the norm for them. Every turn brought hope, and every failure hit like a blow to the chest. But then, finally, they made progress. Kara and Maddie are twin girls who were born in 2000. They were strong and healthy, and they changed everything right away. They wished for the kind of exhaustion that came from not being able to sleep at night, feeding their babies all the time, and dealing with the chaos of having 2 babies at once. If they only had 2 healthy kids, most couples would have ended there. But Kate had bigger plans. She wanted the big family they had talked about before. It was a dream she had had from the start. Jon wasn't sure. They were already having a hard time with money and feelings, but he didn't want to kill her dream. So they went back to the doctor where they had more visits, shots, and hope that was just barely hanging on. Then the news that no one saw coming. It looked like Kate was going to have 6 babies this time. They told us about the risks. Their idea was selected reduction, which neither Jon nor Kate could decide on. They chose to go ahead, even though they knew the next few months would test them in ways they had never come across before. It was terrible being pregnant. Kate had to stay in bed for a long time. It was a battle every day to keep the kids safe for 1 more week. Then, on May 10, 2004, Alexis, Hannah, Aiden, Colin, Leah, and Joel, the six-pack, were born 10 weeks early. They were tiny, fragile, and fighting for their lives in incubators, but they beat the odds and lived. They went from having 4 kids to having 10 in an instant. The home that used to be quiet turned into a storm of feedings, diaper changes, and noise all the time. Jon put in a lot of hours to help them out, and Kate ran the house like a military base to make sure nothing broke. It was very stressful and too much for them, but it was their life. For a while, their love and determination were all that kept things going, but there was still the real test to come. Someone else was watching while they learned how to handle life with 8 kids and had an offer that would change everything. Soon, the thing that brought them together would become the thing that tore them apart. When the cameras showed up, Jon and Kate's lives would never be the same again. How the cameras changed everything. The Goslins were already very busy when the offer came. They have 8 kids, a lot of bills, and no real safety net. A film group wanted to make an hour-long documentary about their life. It seemed harmless, just a quick look into their life that could help other families. Thought it would be a small, one-time thing, they agreed. But everyone couldn't take their eyes off the show when it came on. People were amazed at how the routines and controlled chaos made having twins and sextuplets look so easy. When TLC came back, they had a bigger idea, a whole reality show. It seemed like the right time for Jon and Kate. The payment gave me room to breathe. It meant not having to deal with late notices while paying bills. It meant moving to a bigger home with more room for all the kids. It gave them chances they never thought they'd have, like buying better clothes, going on family trips, and feeling safe. They were like friends at first. There were pictures of birthdays, holidays, and important events. For a while, it seemed like a gift that the Gosselins could share their happiness with a lot of people. Things started to change slowly, though. It was no longer just a house for them. It was a set. It was planned out every day, but not around what the kids wanted. Instead, it was based on shooting blocks, lighting setups, and crew availability. Things that used to happen naturally, like bedtime stories, dinner talks, and the chaos of the morning, were staged or done more than once to get a better shot. Life turned into a show. Kate quickly got used to it. She did best when there was structure, planning all the time, and organized chaos that kept things going. The attention didn't scare her, it made her stronger. She was the show's face and was in charge of both the kids and the brand. She planned sponsorships, media appearances, and production plans with great accuracy. Jon didn't feel that way. He lost a little more of the calm husband and father he had been every week. The cameras followed him around, making his private problems into something fun for everyone to see. At this point, he felt like an extra in his own story and had no say over how other people saw him. Simple days with just his family that he used to value were over. Then there were fights. In a healthy marriage, arguments can go away over time. But when every raised eyebrow, sigh, and snide comment is caught on camera and shown to millions of people, even the smallest disagreement turns into a show. Once the episodes were shown, they caused a lot of talk about stress. People chose sides. People who didn't know the whole story judged them. No longer did they feel safe in their own space. Instead, they were always aware that everyone was looking. It was too much for Jon to handle. The cams didn't just record what he did. They also recorded how far apart he and Kate were getting. The farther away he got, the tighter she held on to keep the show and the house running smoothly. For her, his leaving meant he was giving up. The way she controlled him made him feel like he couldn't breathe. They were not split up by a single violent fight. It was thousands of small moments, chances to connect missed, anger not expressed, and feelings left to grow. They were stuck in roles they couldn't get out of because of their fame. Kate was the unstoppable, commanding figure who kept everything together, and Jon was the unwilling participant who looked more and more out of place. When they discovered how much had changed, it was too late to fix their feelings. The relationship that was once based on shared goals and the need to stay alive had turned into anger. The distance that couldn't be fixed by a camera took the place of love. People thought they were still watching a happy, if a little disorganized, family while all of this was going on. But the illusion would soon fall apart. Before they could hide any longer, the cracks would become so big that their fall would be reported in every newspaper. The Gosselins' marriage was about to fall apart in front of everyone, and the next part would be worse, louder, and more public than anyone had thought. Collapse in the public eye. In 2009, the stress that had been building up inside the Gosselin home finally came to the surface. The smiles that used to look real on camera now look fake. The simple times were over. There was still a lot of tension that could be felt in every shot. Fans knew it. The media picked up on it. Soon, it was impossible to hide the truth. In June, during a special show of Jon and Kate +8, things finally broke down. The couple, who were sitting next to each other, said they were splitting up. Kate stayed calm, but it was clear that she was feeling upset. Jon looked empty. He had been in silent fights for months or even years. What people saw was shocking. It was the kind of news that changes a known story into something completely different. They had lost the perfect family brand they had worked so hard to build. The real confusion started when the cameras stopped rolling. The tabloids jumped all over the story like vultures and made up any story they could. Talk of cheating spread like wildfire. Some people said Jon was seeing someone else. Others said that their fights were over money, including claims of spending too much, secret bank withdrawals, and who should be in charge of the family's money. Every news story made things worse. Then there was a new name, Haley Glassman. She wasn't just randomly linked to the Gosselins. She was the daughter of the plastic surgeon who had done surgery on Kate after she gave birth to her sextuplets. She had been with the family before, but no one knew what would happen next. A few weeks after they said they were splitting up, pictures of Jon and Hailey in Saint-Tropez came out. Magazines and news sites were full of pictures of them laughing, drinking, and holding hands in the sun. The response was right away. Many people thought the pictures proved what they had heard. The public story changed quickly. Jon was no longer the tired dad whose marriage was falling apart. He was now the careless husband who was after a party life while his 8 kids stayed home. Every news source talked about how embarrassed Kate was, and she responded by making strong statements about keeping the kids safe from the fallout. Jon fought back, saying that he and Hailey had only been dating since the breakup. Thoughts had already become set in stone. In the eyes of most people, he was losing badly. The laid-back look that used to make people root for him was gone. Instead, there was a man whose personal life had become the subject of newspaper stories. Not only did the news hurt people's reputations, but it also added fuel to the already brewing legal fight. What began as a split-up quickly turned into a fight over who would have custody. Kate's team said Jon was insecure, careless, and not fit to take care of the kids full-time. Jon responded with his own claims. Kate was controlling and manipulative, and she cared more about keeping up her public image than the mental health of her family. It got worse quickly. Back and forth, accusations of using emotions to get what you want were made. There were claims of wrongdoing with money in court documents, such as empty bank accounts and spending without permission. People talked about the Gosselins' private fights on TV, in magazines, and on online sites. What used to be a marriage was now a public battleground, and 8 kids were stuck in the middle. The same show that had helped them get where they were was now watching as they fell apart. People watched, but not for the same reason they used to. There was no longer any warmth. It was replaced by a raw show, and the damage going on behind the scenes was much worse than anyone could really understand. Years of division. Following the end of the split, Kate was given full custody of all 8 children. Jon could only visit them very rarely, and even those times were tightly managed. The man who used to be a steady part of their lives was now on the outside, watching his children grow up from afar. 2 of the kids, Hannah and Colin, eventually chose to move in with him. The rest went to live with Kate, and the family was split into 2 different homes. They were separated in more ways than one. Birthdays, holidays, and important events that should have been shared were broken up. Some brothers didn't see each other very often, and the closeness they had when they were younger started to fade. Jon often said that he wanted them all to be together, but court orders and long-standing grudges made that impossible. Then, in 2017, things went very badly. Colin went public with a shocking claim that his mother had abused him. He had been sent to a mental treatment center for reasons that were never fully explained. In an honest Instagram post, he said that Kate had hurt him emotionally and left lifelong scars. Jon was thrilled by the news and said it proved what he had been saying for years. In his mind, this was proof that he had to fight for Colin and Hannah's control. Kate flatly rejected the charges and said that all of the choices she made were for the good of her children. It hurt her public image right away, though. Even people who had been behind them for a long time started to wonder what was going on behind closed doors. After that, there were nasty and personal court cases. It seemed like every hearing, filing, and public statement made the wounds worse. The kids were in the middle. Some of them supported Kate, while others supported Jon. It took years, but the gap stayed there. For Jon, life after being famous wasn't at all exciting. As the money from reality TV ended, so did the way of life it had helped pay for. He did any job he could get, like being a DJ, cooking in restaurants, or even waiting tables. He was known, but it wasn't the kind of attention anyone would want. Talk about how far he'd fallen could be heard. Jon said that his fame had gotten to him when he thought back on it. He would let the money, fame, and cameras follow him around all the time, but they would not change him. He was honest about what he had done wrong and said he hadn't worked hard enough to keep his family together. He used to think of his relationship with Hailey Glassman as an interesting escape, But now he saw it as a mistake that took his attention away from the real problems he needed to deal with. It's been 16 years since they broke up, and Jon is not the same person we saw on TV. His words show how deeply the hurts still go. 16 years later. It's hard to believe that Jon Gosselin is now 47 years old. His life is nothing like the one that people used to watch on TV. There is no longer any noise, cruise, or steady attention. He now lives in peace, away from the attention that made and broke him. But when he talks about the past, everything that happened still feels like it's in his words. After years of silence, one statement broke the silence. She was disgusting. It sounded mean, but Jon said it wasn't about looks or small attacks. It was about Kate's decision to keep shooting Kate +8 after they got divorced. He thought she was taking advantage of their kids while the family was falling apart. At the time, it made him mad because he thought that the kids' private lives were being hacked at the worst possible time. With time, Jon accepts that his judgment was bad back then. He can now see that Kate might have thought she was doing the right thing by keeping the show going so that they would have a future together. But the divide it made between them would never go away. Since 2009, they haven't talked. Not a single call, not even a meeting by chance. For Jon, the split isn't just feeling apart, it's real. The biggest hurt is that he doesn't talk to 6 of his children. We haven't talked in years, and he says he's afraid they wouldn't even know him if they saw him on the street. He still has Hannah and Colin, the 2 people who decided to live with him. They have a strong bond because they believe in each other, are stable, and understand what each other has been through. Jon is now engaged to Stephanie Lebeau. He sees their relationship as a second chance to build something good. He wants all 8 of his children to be at the wedding, not because it will be a perfect moment, but because it might help them heal. He doesn't know if that will happen or not. 16 years later, Jon's truth is finally out, but the story isn't over. Like, share, and subscribe, and click the next video on your screen to uncover the rest of this unforgettable journey.